أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الله تعالى في شان حبيب إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. Amma ba'd, in the name of Almighty Allah, most merciful, most compassionate. Salutations upon the most honored, the most beloved, and that person that personifies the absolute perfection of creation, the Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and their families. After which, from Masjidul Quds, the entire Jamaat, the ladies upstairs, the men here, as well as those who are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, as well as the app of the masjid, wherever you are on Allah's dunya, we bid you assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. It's been an absolutely momentous 2018, and of course, when we refer to the year, we are referring to the year in the Gregorian calendar. I just want to be completely upfront and mention to you that, alhamdulillah, I will be sharing with you many a good story here today. But coupled with that, there will be many aspects of the talk that are going to be very uncomfortable to digest. Let me start off on a precious and a sacred note. For decades now, scientists have been spending billions and billions going into space from as near as the moon to as far as the planet Mars. And the ultimate objective of going up there is to look for one commodity in life, and that is water. Sometimes we do not realize the bounties of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah ta'ala created planet Earth, 70% of the mass of planet Earth is water, and 30% is land. And having said that, with all the water that is supposed to be around, the Western Cape found itself in an absolutely crippling drought, leading almost to what was then referred to as day zero. The MJC fatwa was a very positive response to a very dire situation that we found ourselves in, particularly the one about taking wudu only on the faral parts of the body and only taking water once. Masajids all over the Cape reduced the water not to a trickle but to a spray. And this masjid, in conjunction with our neighbor, the Habibia Sufi Masjid, we arranged a Salatul Istisqa, beseeching Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the rahmah of rain, attended by more than 6,000 people. Allah answered our prayers. And of course, we can't forget that beautiful demonstration during the Waqt of Jummah by Dr. Barde and Marhum Sheikh Fuad Isaacs, demonstrating to us the possibility of taking wudu with a spray can. That video clip, by the way, went viral all over the world. The lessons that we learn from the situation of drought is that Almighty Allah is in charge, and that as Muslims, we will always regard water not only to be precious, but absolutely sacred. Whether the dams are full or the dams are empty or three-quarter full or quarter empty, that will always be our position. Then, of course, Jamaat, we had the opening of the Ahlul Bayt Center in Ottery, a very controversial period in the year 2018 for this community. It was very unpleasant at many times, and some of the posts on Facebook were very vulgar and hurtful, to say the least. I'm very happy that things have settled down, and that perhaps people realize that we live in a constitutional democracy and that is place in the sun for everybody. Regarding that, there were two issues which I still cannot understand, and perhaps somebody in the Jamaat after Jummah will make me understand. The one issue was the paradox of when the state president flew down from Pretoria to come to attend an iftar with the leadership of the Muslim community, there was no problem in the fact that leaders from both sides of the divide were there, I was there, many of the other members were there. They made iftar together, they socialized together, they made maghrib with the state president together. They had a lovely meal, and it was a beautiful evening. I asked myself, what was the whole hullabaloo before that all about? The second point I'd like to make is first and foremost to put it on record that I am a Sunni, and inshallah I will die a Sunni. But our fathers and forefathers have taught us a very simple lesson in life, that you first sweep in front of your own door before you want to go and sweep in front of somebody else's door. In the Shia school of thought, there is an institution called a mut'ah marriage. I'm not a scholar, I'm not qualified to speak about it, but in essence, it's a short-term marriage of convenience that leads up to a divorce. That's not the issue that I want to highlight. I want to highlight an issue that is prevalent on your doorstep and my doorstep. That is the issue of promiscuity. We know a cardinal principle of the Sharia is that intimacy in Islam is only permissible after nikah. Intimacy is only permissible after nikah. When we got the statistics from Pretoria this year, it was something that was not nice to hear. 60% of all newborn babies in our country, 60% of all newborn babies were registered at the Department of Home Affairs without the name of a father. Can you imagine how that child is going to grow up? The towering pillar in every home and in every society is a father. There is no father in 60% of the cases. We also had the attack on the Verulam Mosque. 3 knife-wielding crazy people setting a portion of the mosque on fire and killing 1 person in the process. I was happy to note that people from different religious persuasions went there and gave them all the support. On a completely different note, Jamaat, Ramadan last year, certain mosques up north denied entry for women into the masjid. I claim that the women have a rightful claim to. They wanted to come to the masjid to make the Isha, make Taraweeh, and enjoy the beauty of the month of Ramadan in the house of Allah. What some people don't understand, demographically speaking, is that today there are more women than men. And an important point to remember is that our sisters are very beautifully educated today, both in secular education and Dini education. But then we go to the other extreme, across the Atlantic in America, where for the first time, 2 Muslim women were appointed to Congress, which is the Parliament of America. Ilhan Omar, who has a Somali descent, and Rashida Tlaib, a Palestinian descent. And I ask you to make dua that Almighty Allah will make it possible and put that hikmah in their minds and in their brains, that they will contribute towards enhancing the image of Islam in that part of the world. Staying in America, for those of you who have been in New York, there's an iconic building called the Holy Trinity Church. It was in this year where thousands of crosses were exchanged for crescents. And that Holy Trinity Church, ultimately, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, became the Isa ibn Maryam Masjid. Back home, one of the most prestigious educational institutions of learning, the Rondebosch Boys High School, appointed its first Muslim deputy head, Mubarak to Mr. Shaukat Ibrahim. Then the community was absolutely in shock at the number of high-profile business people who were kidnapped and abducted, not only in Cape Town, but Durban and Johannesburg as well. We say shukr to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of them are back with their loved ones and they are all safe. But the question that begs the answer is, where is the intelligence community? Where is that protection which the constitution of this country is supposed to guarantee us? And again we make dua in this very Mubarak time of the Jum'ah, that Almighty Allah must protect each and every one of us. Whether you are a business person, whether you are a working class person, whether you are a professor or a plasterer, when we leave home, we make dua that Almighty Allah brings us all back to our loved ones that afternoon, inshallah. And then a very different, but a very beautiful story, Jamaat. A masjid in Kerala. Kerala is one of the southern states in India. A Jummah with a complete difference. The entire Jummah, the pre-khutbah talk, which is something I'm doing now, as well as the Arabic khutbah, was performed with sign language. It's considered to be the first in the world. 90% of the Jamaat, who were people like you and me, could not follow the proceedings in terms of sign language. What they did realize at the end of the day is what it is to be deaf and dumb. It was a wonderful event in that part of the world. Then from the southern part of India, we go to the northern part of India. One of the most beautiful places on earth. Many a poet has described it as Jannah, paradise on earth. I'm of course referring to Kashmir. But for millions of people living in Kashmir, it is an abyss. It is for them hell on earth. The security people, using all the might of the army to try to quell the aspirations of the people for freedom, they came out with a new tactic, and that is an ordinary pellet gun. But the tactic happened to be completely extraordinary. What they did is they take the pellet gun and they shoot into the eyes of little ones fighting for the freedom of the country. And with that, 600 people have been blinded at the moment. From India, we go across to the neighbor in Pakistan. From a cricketing icon to the Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. I'm of course referring to Mr. Imran Khan. Having been elected Prime Minister, the first official trip he made was to the Baytullah in Makkah Sharif. And after performing Umrah, he went to Medina to Munawwara, and when he got off the plane, he walked barefoot to the Rauda Sharif. And the reason why he walked barefoot is to show the respect of that soil that covers the body of Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imran Khan went on to become the 7th most followed leader on Twitter. On the other extreme, I said I've got a good story and an uncomfortable story. Many leaders of many countries happen to be psychopaths this year. Names like Trump, MBBS, and Netanyahu, who enacted a law making Israel the nation state of the Jewish people, reducing the Muslims, Arabs, and all other minorities to second-class citizens. But then again, we have hope in names like Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who went on to become the most influential Muslim of the year 2018. But in addition to that, he took on the might of the superpowers and vowed not to implement sanctions against Iran. Sadly, Jamaat, it was also the year when for the first time the Al-Aqsa Masjid was closed for Friday prayers 3 times during the course of the year. We also lost many, many good leaders in Cape Town. The names of Imam Yasin Harris, may Allah grant him a very high place in Jannah. Professor Yusuf da Costa, may Allah grant him a very high place in Jannah as well. And of course, I can never omit the name of Maulana Ihsan Hendricks, a lifelong campaigner for the people of Palestine, the struggling people of Palestine. And if you want to know how the people of Palestine were struggling last year, 2018, 289 people were killed. 6,500 people were arrested. Among them, 1,000 children, 140 women, and 38 journalists. 538 homes were demolished, and they have the audacity to profess human rights. And then for us in this masjid, Jamaat, we lost our beloved dear Sheikh Muhammad Fuad Isaacs. 25 years having served this masjid diligently with passion and with zeal. Not only a true imam, but an imam for the people and of the people. When we wanted to approach him and offer him something towards the service of 25 years at this masjid, whatever offer we made a function, feeding the Jamaat, he declined all the offers. The only offer that he suggested to us was going for Umrah. He took 100 people with him. Myself, Hafiz Mahmoud Khatib, Brother Faisal Royker, among many other people. The component of those 100 people was from 3 years old to 83 years old. And I've said it, and I say it again. It was an absolute dream Umrah. Many of us make Umrahs, but there was something in the Umrah that Sheikh Fuad took, which is, it's an Umrah that we will never ever forget for the rest of our lives. His janazah was among the biggest the Cape has witnessed for many, many years. And the video clip, the recording of the janazah, was the most watched event at this masjid, even surpassing some of the high-profile motivational speakers that come here from other parts of the world. I ask you to join me in making a special dua for our beloved Sheikh Fuad Isaacs. May Almighty Allah grant him the highest abode in the Jannah, inshallah. Then on a sad note, the ongoing massacre of the Rohingyas. Finally, the United Nations found it fit to declare it a genocide against humanity. But with that, there was another event that took place in 2018. A community of Muslims in China known as the Uyghurs. 1 million of them at the moment are in concentration camps. 1 million of them. They are forced to renounce Islam. They are forced not to read the Quran. And the world sits by quietly. I say it again, for the rest of the world, Muslim life is very, very cheap. Back home, Sheikh Yusuf, may Almighty Allah be pleased with him. Sheikh Yusuf was that personality that established the first community of Muslims way back in 1694. One man's efforts resulted today in South Africa, where there are 1.5 million Muslims all over our country. The government, very rightfully and correctly, declared his mazar, his shrine, his kramat, to be a national heritage site. Then we go to the Bukab and the justified rage of the people of the Bukab. The government is also going to be declaring that a national heritage site. And after that, they will be approaching the United Nations to declare the beauty of the Bukab a World Heritage Site. From the Cape to Indonesia, where the people of Indonesia suffered 2 earthquakes this year. It has been a devastating blow on those people. Alhamdulillah, this masjid and the Jamaat once again emptied their pockets over a period of 2 Jumas, 20 minutes each, and also the help of many other benefactors who came to the front. We raised 420,000 rand to send over via Islamic Relief to help the people in Indonesia. May Almighty Allah bless each and every one, inshallah. On a much lighter note, the Swedish singer Mahir Zain performed in Cape Town for the first time with a Philharmonic Orchestra known as the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra. It was a very beautiful event for those that went and attended the event. But what I found absolutely beautiful is the praises that were sung in praise of Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I was just wondering while I was watching what impact this beauty has on those non-Muslim people that were accompanying Mahir Zain. And the highlight for me and for many of you was that beautiful song that he rendered with the symphony orchestra. Palestine will be free, Palestine will be free, inshallah. Then another icon that made headlines worldwide this year, and I think the youngsters are going to be very happy when I mention his name, the football player, Muhammad Salah. Sometimes when we look at these people, we tend to just treat them as if they are just there and just doing a job. This man teams up with 10 other people to form a team. But the message that he's sending out, together with names like Hashim Amla, is a very strong message to counter the rising tide of secularism that's engulfing the world today. Muhammad Salah, before he gets onto the field, he offers a dua to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he scores a goal, he goes down and he does what is known as sujood shukr, thanking the Almighty Allah. Can we just imagine 100,000 people in the stadium watching the beauty of this man's akhlaq, and millions of people who are watching via the TV networks. What an inspiration he is, not only to Muslims, but people who do not follow our faith. And I am sure many of them have been riveted in wanting to take the Shahada, and may that happen, inshallah, sooner than later. Then back home, Jamaat, on a very disturbing note, and I want to spend a minute or two on this. We have witnessed the polarization of our community. I'm not talking now about the Muslim community, but the South African community. And the recent events that took place on Clifton Beach is but just one example. We have to realize that we are a minority, and that we are living in this country, and that we are going to die in this country. We have to realize that it is not only good to know the first line of the national anthem. By the way, the national anthem is not a political statement. It is a hymn which says, God save Africa. We need to embrace our country together with the reality of our country. And we must never ever forget that in 1994, were it not for the graciousness of our black African brothers and sisters in this country, the country would have gone up in smoke. We owe our black brothers and sisters, Muslims and non-Muslims, a huge debt of gratitude. I ask you today in this time of Jummah, embrace Africanism. We have in Islam many role models who were, for the want of a better expression, dark-skinned. Hazrat Bilal is one, Bibi Hajar is another one, and in recent times we had Imam Abdullah Haroon as well as Professor Yusuf da Costa that did so much good work in the underprivileged townships. Let us follow those examples. Then a very hot potato issue this year was the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. An absolute heinous crime, if ever there was one. To kill somebody is very, very bad, but to chop up the body in parts and not knowing where that body is a million times worse. We admire the principled position taken by Turkey. But at the end of the day, from this masjid, we send out a very, very strong signal. Truth will eventually trump oppression. Then, on a light-hearted note, I want to share with you an incident that I experienced in the town center in Mitchell's Plain. Every Saturday, they have the Christian missionaries, and they do their thing, which they are quite entitled to do. This particular Saturday, there was an American pastor that came to speak. And there were lots of people around him, and he was speaking about the plight of people at the moment, the drug abuse, the alcoholic abuse, abuse of women, the things that we normally hear. And I was in my office and listening to this man speaking. I found it strange that he was an American coming all the way to the town center in Mitchell's Plain. But then he made a statement that made me very much aware. He says, my dear brothers and sisters, religion is not the answer to your problems. And I got the shock of my life. I got up, I looked through the window. The man repeats the statement. He says, religion is not the answer to your problems. And he's telling them, he says, forget whether you are a Catholic, a Methodist, a Protestant, or an Anglican. He says, God is the solution to your problems. I listened to this talk, Jamaat, and I could not help but think that what a message this man is giving to his flock, and what message we give to our people from time to time. We will continue with our differences, continue our bickering, continue our nitpicking, and create havoc in the community. Then, Jamaat, the scourge of inter-Muslim violence. Shocking what I'm going to tell you now. Afghanistan, Kabul. A suicide bomber blows himself up in the masjid on the night of Maulud al-Nabi. 50 people are killed. In Bangladesh, and we saw the clips, our Tablighi brothers were supposed to have had a spiritual camp. It turned out into a spiritual battlefield. We are becoming not only the laughing stock of people outside the house of Islam, our own youth are regarding us as a laughingstock. And then a blot on the conscience of each and every Muslim. Yemen, 60,000 people dead, 14 million people forced into famine, 1.2 million children infected with cholera, 2,500 of them have died already. Thousands are homeless. It is the worst humanitarian crisis the world has seen for a long time. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, we blame the Saudis, and we blame everybody that's with the Saudis. But just keep at the back of your mind one point. One of the arms companies in South Africa is supplying arms to Saudi Arabia. Don't ever forget that. The company's name is Danel. Therefore, Jamaat, because of the assault on the values of tolerance, respect, and dignity, which I have mentioned earlier on, the Cape Accord was formed. And I want to make it very, very clear here today. The Cape Accord was not formed with any agenda to protect any group from anywhere. Whether you were a Sunni or a Shia, Deobandi, Barelwildi, we were not there to protect any of that group. We formed the Cape Accord to save us from the catastrophe of what's happening in other parts of the world. Some people went and they hijacked the Accord. They hijacked the ideals of the Accord. As you know, it became dirty and very, very messy. Let me tell you something about these people. They will leave you alone until you challenge their turf. Once you start thinking, and once you refrain from being brain-chained, you become the enemy number one. At the end of the day, with that issue, it was reduced to 3 words. And all 3 words begin with the letter F. Fitna, followed by fatwa, their form of fatwa, by the way, followed by financial blackmail. After Ramadan, to give you an example, South Africa hosted, and he was in Cape Town, one of the leading scholars of the world from Pakistan, Maulana Tariq Jamil. Remember that surname? Jamil. In essence, the message of Maulana Tariq Jamil was the one which we preached from the Cape Accord. Some of these guys up in Joburg and Durban, they had the audacity and the nerve to call him Tariq Jahil, not Jamil. How low can you get? 3 weeks ago, in Saudi Arabia, a conference was arranged. They got some of the scholars of the world. I don't know how leading they were, but they got them there. And listen to these words very, very carefully. The object of the conference was to spread tolerance and understanding. Tolerance and understanding. At the end of the conference, a call was made, and please listen to this very carefully. The call was to adhere to Islam's values of moderation and tolerance. That was the call made at the conference in Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago. Call for moderation and tolerance. The question I have today is, perhaps Saudi Arabia should sign the Cape Accord as well. But Jamaat, we carry on. As long as what we are doing is for the pleasure of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and some people benefit from what we're doing, we carry on. As we know, the institution of jihad has many definitions and many aspects. For me, one of the best ones is to be able to tell truth to tyranny, no matter what the odds are or the consequences are. That is a hallmark of a true Muslim. I want to end my talk by reading out some gems from the mouth of one of the great companions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm referring to Hazrat Ali alayhi salam. He was a companion, he was a cousin, and also the son-in-law of our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hazrat Ali said, and listen to this very carefully, for your fellow Muslim, offer your wealth. In other words, give whatever you can for your fellow Muslim. If the need arises, even give your blood. Listen to what he says about what we must give for an enemy. He says, for your enemy, offer them justice and fairness. For your enemy, offer them justice and fairness. And for the rest of humanity, offer them joy and goodwill. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.